I grew up in Wisconsin working on a small dairy farm in a small farming community. I moved out to Delaware in 2009. My wife and I got married in 2014, and we lived in a development at the time. Kind of growing up as a kid, I always wanted to farm, but realized unless I married a farmer's daughter or was a millionaire, I probably wasn't going to get into commodity crops or dairy farming, anything like that. So at the time I put farming on the back burner. Shortly after we got married, I remember we read an article in a magazine called Mother Earth News talking about a farmer in Quebec that farmed on 1.5 acres and was able to provide enough income to support his family and actually make a little money on the side as well. So when we read that article, kind of felt reinvigorated and decided to resume pursuing that dream. Growing up as a kid, and even when I lived in Delaware, I always had a garden. We decided to turn our backyard into a garden plot. And just knowing the neighbor, he hated mowing grass, so we approached him about turning his yard into a garden as well. And then it just turned out the same thing with the next door neighbor as well. Next to him, he hated mowing grass as well. So by the time all things were said and done, we were starting to take over the cul-de-sac and starting to farm all these people's backyards. And it was about 2 years into that my wife and I just decided to take a step of faith and purchase a farm. So we found this farm and just slowly but surely started converting more and more of the ground into vegetable production and put in the pasture that you can, I guess, see behind us here. And have slowly been just working on cleaning it up, reclaiming land that's been fallow, and putting it into some sort of production, be it vegetables and other livestock.
So I would say that when you and I met, I think it was in 2013, that was when our journey with farming actually started. He was working as a corrections officer at the time, and I thought, oh great, state job, great benefits, this is going to work out. And then I quickly realized he was not meant to be a corrections officer, and he had tried so many other jobs. You were an auto mechanic, you were an insurance salesman, warehouse working, truck driving, bus driving. He's a jack of all trades, but he always wanted to be a farmer. And he was really good at it. And so when we got engaged, he asked me what flowers I wanted in my wedding. And I said, sunflowers, of course. So he got a seed catalog out and started picking out the varieties and the germination dates and how many succession plantings he was going to need to have it timed perfectly for our wedding. And that kind of started making me think, okay, first I was nervous. I was like, I don't know about this. I hadn't known him more than a year at the time, and I was like, I don't know how well this is going to work. Maybe we just need to start looking for florists and see how this goes. But it worked out amazingly. The florist we worked with created arrangements from his sunflowers, and they loved them so much they wanted to start buying them from him. So I was thinking, maybe we should make a little side hustle here. And I really just encouraged him to keep moving forward with it instead of just having a garden. I knew what his dreams were, and I was like, hey, owning a business would be fun. It would be awesome. It'd be not that hard. It's been just an incredible journey since then, seeing how fast things have grown and expanded, going from 10 CSA members in our backyard. I'm not even sure how big that garden was. It was
probably about 1/2 acre.
Yeah, maybe that much. To now, last year we had 82 CSA members, and we've been providing for 3 farmers markets and like 3 or 4 restaurants. So it's every year. It seems like it's doubling every year. So we're on year 5 now.
Right.
So Zach and I are 50-50 in the farm. If we were to give ourselves actual titles for what we do, he would be the farm manager. He's, the field manager. He also manages all the livestock, all the nursery plants, so many different moving parts. My end of things is more of the finances, the marketing, customer relations, managing the CSA, working with wholesalers, and doing farmers markets and things like that. And our 2 kiddos, they're not quite old enough to really have a job yet, but they're always involved in everything we do, from collecting eggs to planting and harvesting and making messes to clean up.
So we own just under 40 acres. I think about half our land is wooded. So on the other, 15, 20 acres that we have that is not wooded, we utilize 2 acres for vegetable production. Anything from, your typical garden vegetables like tomatoes, carrots, onions, potatoes, cabbage, things like that. We just put in some blueberries, strawberries, things of that nature. And then we also, the rest of our open ground we utilize as rotational grazing for what I call our flurd, which is a combination of cattle and sheep that we intensively graze. So every 12 hours we're moving them around on different paddocks. And then usually that's kind of followed by our poultry. So we have egg layers, meat birds, and then turkeys as well. And then on top of that, we also raising some hogs right now just to see if they incorporate well or not into a pasture system. And then I guess one thing that we've been looking at, kind of trying to utilize the best, the most of our ground that we can, trying to figure out how we can convert some of our woodlands into what's called, I guess, a silvopasture, where it's a combination of beneficial trees, like mass trees and oaks and things of that nature, or fruit-bearing trees to really thin the tree's canopy down to about, where it's reduced by about 70%, so it still provides shade, but allows enough light down for other vegetation to grow as well. So, we got 40 acres, but we were able to jam a lot into it. So we currently don't incorporate any type of agritourism into our farm. However, it's kind of on our radar. A big desire of ours is to, not just have a profitable farm and leave a legacy for our children, but we really want to impact other, people in our community as well. Having a foot in both the commercial side of agriculture and now in the small regenerative side, I really strongly feel that what we're doing here is going to need to be the way of the future. So, not so many just monocultures of corn and beans, but greatly diversifying and thinking of better ways of doing things with less inputs and preferably no inputs. Be able to start incorporating, educating children and other folks in the community, both just how to, something as simple as raising their own garden, keeping a couple egg-laying chickens, whatever the case may be, to hopefully down the road, maybe mentoring other folks that want to do something similar to what we're doing. It's a desire to see other farms like ours pop up because, when you can form something like a co-op, it removes the need for an individual to have to do everything. And it really spreads the risk out over a much wider base and makes it not only less risky for an individual farmer, but it also makes it more attractive to whatever your client base would be it individual families buying produce from you or restaurants wanting to buy, large quantities of things. Part of it's agritourism, but more or less it's just really plugging into the community, educating folks, and then being there for those who maybe don't have a green thumb or have any desire to grow, but again, just educating them on the need and the value of something that's grown naturally and locally and really seasonally. So that's kind of how I see us, not only as a provider of awesome food, but also an educator and hopefully an edifier, someone that can build other people up that desire to do the same thing we do. We've
had some awesome mentors that have helped us get to this point in our business, and we want to keep continuing that on. We know several people that want to start a business like this, and we try to bring them out, and we try to encourage them, and just help them keep moving forward. And we have so many ideas out there of what we want to do in the future. We always have so many different things going on at once, so we have to pick and choose the priorities. But now that we have strawberries and blueberries, we definitely want to incorporate a U-pick in the future. And we have also tossed around the idea of a nature school for kids, primarily, especially since our kids are young. I feel like they've taught me more about nature than I knew before moving here, because I grew up in Dover, and the most I knew about agriculture was, a backyard garden, or, the kind of farming he grew up around, corn and beans, or I want to do something different. If we're going to do this, we have to do something sustainable. We have to do something that's better for the environment and better for our health. So there's a lot to be said about organic, sustainable, regenerative agriculture. It's better, definitely better, and I believe in that. And I think that the more we can spread that awareness to people, and the more just small-scale people that want to start a business, or if it's, they just want to grow in their backyard for their own families, I think, that we can make it more of a common thing, and more attainable.
So, when looking at what I consider to be regenerative agriculture, it's really, in a very big nutshell, farming in harmony with nature. When you look at, how God created, this world, and when you look at the woods, the prairies, the wetlands, you always have really 5 what I call tenets in place. There's 1, you have a living root in the soil as much as possible. 2, if you have nothing growing, the soil is at least covered, so having some form of soil armor. You have biodiversity, so lots of different plants and animals living in close proximity to each other. You have minimal soil disturbance, and you have animals integrated into the system. When you look at nature and how it functions, you have those 5 principles in a healthy system. Remove any one of those things from the system and it starts to fail. You have a very complex functioning system that is truly beyond being sustainable. It's it is constantly building on itself and making itself better. And when you look again at a healthy functioning system, you start to realize that there in reality is no such thing as a bad bug or a bad plant. We consider things weeds because they're where we don't want them, but in reality it's God's way of trying to protect the soil, because when you have bare ground, it's exposed to sun, erosion, evaporation. Most of the deserts in the world are man-made because we leave bare ground all over. Even on this side field here, we just got done cleaning it up now, but you can already see the green cover crop that I just put out starting to pop up. That's just in an effort to get living roots in the soil. And so, without going into great detail, which I love doing, it's just really administering those 5 principles. And at the end of the day, I guess my final point really would be is that I'm not so much looking at what the plant needs, but I'm looking at the microscopic level and asking myself, what does the microorganism in the soil need? Because once you attain that balance where you have a healthy food web that lives in the soil between bacteria, fungus, nematodes, earthworms, and so on, you establish a healthy system where the plant forms a symbiotic relationship with that life in the soil, and they support and take care of one another. And that really, is a very oversimplification of it, but I think a good summary of what I look at as a farmer now. And even at the pasture, our plants out here, we have about a 15 different mix of pasture mix out here in an effort to, again, support biodiversity.
from someone who doesn't have much scientific background and who's new to agriculture, the way that I view regenerative agriculture is it's very similar to organic, but we take it a step further. Not only do we not use chemicals to treat issues, we try to just improve the health of the soil so that the soil will take care of our plants and our animals. We're moving towards using no synthetic fertilizer at all. Because, you know, if our system were to break down and we didn't have access to these products, we wouldn't be able to farm. So if we can find a way to farm without outside sources, then, hey, not only are we more profitable, we don't have to spend that money, but, you know, we are truly sustainable. And that's what we're all trying to work toward. It's just, you can see that our animals are a lot happier and healthier, and the plants, each year, like as we've improved the health of the soil and added more what you call organic matter, through keeping the soil covered and keeping that diversity, we've seen just improvement in the way our plants are doing through the amount of yield that's produced and just, you know, the size of the plants and, you know,
natural resistance to pests and disease. You know, from the get-go, I made a commitment not to use pesticides.
Insecticides.
Yeah, you know, because again, when you use a pesticide, you're killing both the good and bad insects. Like this year, we applied 189 tons of compost to our farm, and you know, as opposed to last year, we did probably half that. You know, and it's just every year we apply something like that, and you see the yields go up, you see the natural resistance go up, you retain water better because you have high organic material in the soil. Food's more nutritious, you know, I mean, more nutrient dense.
A lot better. You know. If you want to buy from Dittmar Family Farms, you can go to our website, www.dittmarfamilyfarms.com, and we have an online store. You can order from there. You can pick up at our farm in Felton, or you can pick up at one of our farmers market locations. We do the Crooked Hammock Lewis Farmers Market on Wednesdays, and on Saturdays they have another location from 8 to 12 at George H.P. Smith Park. And I'm also up in Dover on Thursdays at the Modern Maturity Center if you're in Kent County. And we also stop by the Bavarian Bakery on Tuesday afternoons. That's one of our CSA distributions, but we can also do a pickup order that way as well. And it also leads me to, we do a lot of community-supported agriculture. So if you want to order a share, you can purchase store credits from our online store, and you can pick up weekly and get whatever we have in season.